After his exhortation against greed, which we heard in last week's gospel, in today's gospel reading, Jesus admonishes his disciple about the need to get their priorities right and focus on the right kind of reward. As he calls it, the purses which do not wear out. For the Christian, the right kind of reward, the purse which does not wear out, is not the treasure that is ultimately rooted in the shifting sands of human opinion, like celebrity or like wealth. For the Christian, the purse which does not wear out is the treasure which lasts, like a lasting, loving relationship with Almighty God. And having spoken about looking for the right kind of purse that does not wear out, Jesus then turns his attention to the whole issue of the watchfulness expected of Christians in view of the delayed coming of the Son of Man, which is really St. Luke speaking through the lips of Jesus. This teaching given through the lips of the Lord takes us back to the situation of the early church, which experienced a long and unforeseen delay of Jesus' second coming. And worse, they experienced this delay in a culture that was to them quite hostile and over which they had little influence. Here I think there is much in Jesus' message for Christians today, since we seem in our own time to be returning rapidly to a situation in which the church faces much hostility and over which she has very little influence. The question, therefore, which poses itself is this: what is my posture as a Christian? How do I walk through a life that is very hard and very challenging? How do I wait on God who comes into my life as grace and salvation? The mystery of waiting is perhaps one of the most challenging features of the spiritual life. For certain, modern culture abhors waiting. In the eyes of many, waiting is seen as a time of non-achievement and of time wasted. Time is money. But when we look at the Hebrew Bible, this is not God's attitude to waiting. And over again, there are stories in the history of salvation of God's exquisite use of time. For example, allowing Israel to remain 40 years before entering the land of promise. God takes his time when God prepares his people and his prophets. Jesus, very similarly, has a positive attitude to waiting. Jesus says, have your lamps lit. Be like men waiting for your master to return from the wedding feast. In other words, Jesus encourages us to wait on God. Our posture in life is one of joyful anticipation. But in the sayings in which Jesus discusses this joyful anticipation with which we wait on God, this joyful anticipation expresses itself in two ways: in work and in watchfulness. The steward gets busy about the task which has been allotted him. We can put it this way. The late American DJ and radio personality Casey Kasem had a signature line which says, "Keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars." Well, Jesus would modify it like this: keep your feet on the ground and your head in the future. The Christian is invited to keep his or her feet on the ground, to attend fully and completely to the tasks which are allotted us in life, to the occupation which we are lucky to be a part of. And we are fully engaged and connected with modern life. We take part in its art, its politics, its labor relations, everything that makes modern life what it is. But yet, the Christian today is called to live his or her life in such a way with the sense that God is always prepared to do something new, that God's grace lies just over the horizon, always around the corner. Something new is about to happen, and always about to happen in the world. There's always the possibility. Horizons are open in God's future. One of my favorite stories of this kind of joyful waiting, this kind of practicality and yet future orientation of the Christian is given in the story of a friend of mine called George. When we were at college, George was a student from a very humble background who wanted to be a math professor. And his poverty apparently prevented him from realizing his goals, at least immediately. What did George do? What was his posture in life? How did he wait on the grace of God? George got active. George taught math lessons on Saturdays. He volunteered to tutor students in some of the roughest neighborhoods of the city. George coached young people going abroad in the Math Olympiad. George filled his life with math activity. And his life went on like this until one day, out of the blue, he saw an ad in the newspaper. There was an international organization offering all kinds of scholarships to talented individuals from the developing world, including math scholars. The rest, as we say, is history. George kept his feet on the ground. George kept himself connected and interested in life today. George got busy. George got active while he waited on God. And yet all the time he continued to nurture the belief that God loved him and wanted only the best for him. As Christians, on this, the 19th Sunday of Ordinary Time, you and I can do no less. Let us remember the Lord's injunction to keep our feet on the ground and our head in God's future. God bless you.